Heads up.
Alors, bonjour, bienvenue à cette conférence de presse. Before we begin, we have a few important preventive measures to share, especially to protect the health of our interpreter. So, I will read them in French, if you don't mind. Pour prévenir donc les incidents acoustiques susceptibles de causer des blessures, nous rappelons à tous les participants de garder votre oreillette éloignée de tous les microphones, et ce à tout moment. Lorsque votre oreillette n'est pas utilisée, veuillez la placer vers le bas au milieu de l'autocollant sur votre table et veuillez également consulter les cartes sur la table pour connaître les lignes directrices de la prévention des incidents acoustiques. So today we are receiving Minister Carla Qualtrough. Minister, the floor is yours.
Merci Valérie. Bonjour tout le monde. Merci d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je voudrais commencer en rappelant que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire traditionnel des Algonquins Anishinaabe. I also want to acknowledge, on behalf of the Government of Canada, athletes and other sport participants who have been harmed, abused, or maltreated in the Canadian sports system, particularly those who were maltreated as children. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry the sports system didn't protect you or hold to account those who hurt you. What you experienced should not have happened. And to those who have come forward, thank you. We must understand how and why this happened and continues to happen, and we must take action to prevent it from happening in the future. Culture change and system reform are needed. Last fall, I approached the task of addressing the safe sport crisis and restoring the confidence of Canadians with a focus on taking the necessary steps toward long-term systemic change and forward-looking action. I shared my vision of a sports system that reflects and celebrates our Canadian values of equality, fairness, and inclusion. Of a sports system that reflects the diversity of Canada, with human rights protection reflected in the governance and operation of sport. A reimagined sports system and sport culture grounded in inclusion and focused on the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of athletes and all sport participants. In December, I announced the creation of an independent and impartial Future of Sport in Canada Commission with a mandate to review the Canadian sports system. Last month's federal budget included $10.6 million over 2 years, starting in 2024-2025, to support the operations of the Future of Sport in Canada Commission. Through its review of the Canadian sports system, the Commission will make recommendations in 2 areas. First, actions that can be taken to improve safety in sport in Canada, including trauma-informed approaches to support athletes in the disclosure of and healing from abuse in sport. And second, actions that can be taken to improve sport in Canada more broadly, including issues related to policy, funding structures, governance, reporting, accountability, conflicts of interest, system alignment, culture, and legal considerations. Pour remplir ce mandat, la Commission devra produire 2 rapports et organiser un sommet national afin de permettre aux participants de délibérer sur les conclusions et les recommandations préliminaires. La commission sera composée par une commissionnaire indépendante et 2 conseillers spéciaux, une spécialiste des droits des victimes, de la protection des enfants et des processus tenant compte des traumatismes et un spécialiste possédant une connaissance approfondie du système sportif canadien. So today, I'm announcing the members of the Future of Sport in Canada Commission. Appointed as Commissioner is Justice Lise Maisonneuve, former Chief Justice of the Ontario Court of Justice. As a judge and former Chief Justice, Justice Maisonneuve has a strong background in the administration of justice and managing complex processes. She comes to this role completely independent from sport. Joining Justice Maisonneuve are special advisors Ms. Noni Classen and Dr. Andrew Pipe. Ms. Classen is the Director of Education and Support Services at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. She works closely with child-serving organizations across the country to help implement a systems-based approach to safeguarding children from child sexual abuse. She also has years of experience in programming for youth with complex trauma. She brings to the Commission a strong background in maltreatment that includes trauma prevention and protection. Dr. Pipe is a clinician scientist at the Ottawa Heart Institute and a professor at the University of Ottawa's Faculty of Medicine. A member of the Order of Canada, Dr. Pipe is an internationally recognized expert in smoking cessation, anti-doping, and sports medicine. He has served as team doctor for national teams and as chief medical officer for Olympic, Pan Am, and Commonwealth teams. Most recently, Dr. Pipe has also served as chair of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. So thank you all for taking on these responsibilities. I am confident that your work will help us build a sports system that Canadians can be proud of, and your work starts now. J'encourage tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes à participer au processus de la Commission. La Commission a besoin de recueillir le témoignage des personnes, des intervenantes et des experts venant de l'extérieur et de l'intérieur et l'extérieur du système sportif. Des personnes venant d'autres domaines qui peuvent partager des perspectives, des approches et des solutions. La qualité des résultats de ce processus repose sur la qualité des contributions reçues. Nous avons l'occasion de faire en sorte que tous les athlètes et participants du monde du sport vivent une expérience sportive sécuritaire et positive. That's the sport we want for Canadians, and the sport that our children deserve. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. I'll now turn the floor over to Justice Maisonneuve to share some remarks before we take questions.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la ministre. Je suis très honorée d'avoir été choisie pour remplir un rôle aussi important. C'est une responsabilité que je prends au sérieux et grâce à laquelle nous espérons avoir un aspect positif sur le sport au Canada. Sport is a source of national pride for Canadians. Anything which undermines the integrity of the sports systems affects us all. How the Commission on the Future of Sport in Canada will undertake its work over the next 18 months has yet to be determined. But what has been determined is our end goal: concrete recommendations to improve the safety of sport in Canada. Dans le cadre de ce mandat, mes deux conseillers spéciaux et moi-même espérons consulter des athlètes, des entraîneurs, des organismes sportifs, des officiels, des universitaires, des experts et d'autres personnes afin de tracer la voie du futur et d'identifier les réformes nécessaires pour protéger les enfants et les adultes dans le sport. At this stage, it would be premature of me to go into any detail on how we will approach our mandate. However, one thing is certain. We are committed to examining carefully the sports system in Canada and identifying the structures and processes that will support a values-based, safe sports system for all. We appreciate the powerful role of sport in our society, the need to ensure it receives thoughtful stewardship, and that the well-being of all participants is paramount. With the expertise and support of the special advisors, Ms. Noni Classen, and her extensive experience in helping organizations to safeguard children, and to Dr. Andrew Pipe's celebrated involvement in sports, sports medicine, and ethics in sports, I have every confidence that we will achieve our goal. At the end of the day, the Commission is about people in sports. We are here to listen, to consider, and to help chart a safer future for sport in Canada. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre.
Excellent, merci. Alors maintenant, Valérie,
Yeah.
on prendre des
We'll
questions.
turn to a question period. We'll start in the room. If you are joining us on Zoom, please raise your hand if you have a question. And we'll start with Samira from CBC.
Hi, I'm Samira from CBC. Back in December, when you announced this commission, some critics came forward saying that they were disappointed that this was a commission and not an inquiry. How can you reassure those critics that the conclusions of this commission will be able to hold accountable the sport actors and associations?
Well, thank you for the question. Do I turn this on, or are we? No, it's on. Okay, pardon me, thank you. Listen, we spend a lot of time arriving at the model that we eventually landed on, which is based on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission model, as opposed to not a public inquiry. After researching past inquiries in terms of references, examples of the kinds of processes that are out there to get to the end result of a safer and more inclusive and welcoming sports system, we landed on this model for 2 or 3 primary reasons. First of all, of course, it's forward-looking. It starts from a place where we acknowledge that bad things, sometimes really bad things, have happened in sport in this country. And we all are committed to making sure that those things don't continue to happen in Canada. Secondly, public inquiry has some structural challenges that can put the equally as important objective of having a trauma-informed process to make that challenging. We heard from participants in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for example, that compelling victims to tell their story was not, I guess, Noni, you could tell, it is not a trauma-informed approach. And thirdly, there's an aspect, particularly in the domain of sport, to jurisdiction, that having a full-blown public inquiry would have resulted in months and months of negotiation with provinces to agree on terms of references that ultimately I did not have the confidence we could arrive at. All of that being said, and as I said in my remarks, the outcome of this, the strength of the recommendations, will be directly correlated to the information that this team gathers. And we have committed as a government to respond to their report within 6 months and take immediate action as soon as our response is tabled.
No follow-up.
Okay, so we'll go online and we'll start with Mark Ramsey from the Toronto Star.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Minister Qualtrough, I have to ask, as the former Minister for Disability Inclusion and as the person who championed the Canada Disability Benefit, what do you think about the $200 a month benefit that was announced in this year's budget?
I would take us back to last June when we passed historic legislation to create the biggest change in our social safety net in generations, and which would be, of course, the disability benefit. A $6 billion investment over 5 years in working age Canadians with disabilities who are living in poverty is not insignificant. Can we do more? Absolutely. Will we do more? Absolutely. We need to work with provinces and territories to ensure that money is not clawed back from provincial disability assistance. It's a good start, and I'll leave it there, but there's a lot more work to do to ensure that people with disabilities live in dignity.
Thank you for that. And just as a follow-up, I'm wondering, when you were minister and you were in consultation over this benefit, is this the kind of result that you expected, one that most people in the community say is not adequate enough? Is that what you kind of thought would come of this?
I expected a long-term commitment to working age people with disabilities in this country, and that's what we got. I also expect our government to keep working to make improvements to both the disability benefit and other programs and services we offer Canadians with disabilities. And you can assure me that I'm holding our government's feet to the fire in whatever role I hold in cabinet.
Okay, we'll go with Donna Spencer, the Canadian Press.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello,
can.
can you hear me? Thank you.
We can't hear.
Donna, can you speak a little bit louder, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, Donna.
All right. Minister Qualtrough, when will the Commission start hearing from stakeholders, leaders, athletes? When, I guess, will the Commission take this show on the road, and where will that?
Thank you, Donna. So the Commission starts its work now, and I will ask Justice Maisonneuve to talk a little bit more about your timelines.
Thank you. As you can imagine, we as a Commission have not yet met. We are meeting for the first time today. So the process that will be followed and undertaken by the Commission is now what we are going to be deciding. We are now in the planning stage, and all of these questions will be answered in due course. Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up question, Donna?
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes. How much of the commission's work will be public in terms of public able to attend, in terms of public able to watch via streaming?
Very good question. Again, all of those questions will be answered soon. No decision has been made. I am about to meet with the two advisors that are here with me today, and we are forming our team for the Commission, and those issues will be decided soon.
And Donna, if I could add, if you look at the terms of reference for the commission, there's maximum flexibility in terms of how they carry out their responsibilities in order to be responsive to and respectful of victims and survivors. So I expect, and I know this commission will be very mindful of who they're talking to when they develop the processes that they will undertake, and the way they engage with people will be very mindful of whom they're engaging with.
Okay, now Davis Legree, iPolitics.
Thanks very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. Perhaps this is in the terms of reference as well. Excuse my lack of preparation on that front. But to my last colleague's question, I was hoping you might be able to give a little more detail on when we can expect a final result here. I understand you're just meeting for the first time today, but I believe Minister Qualtrough, you mentioned that there will be 2 reports coming from this commission. Is there a specific date or time frame we can expect for those reports to be released?
Yeah, so Davis, thanks for the question. So the commission will deliver 2 reports, with the final report anticipated in 18 months from now. The first will be a set of preliminary recommendations that will then be discussed at a national sports summit soon thereafter. The final report's recommendations will be informed by those discussions and will build upon the preliminary recommendations. That's kind of the structure of the process, and the in-between is being handed over to this very capable group.
And just as a follow-up, Mr. Qualtrough, I was wondering if there's been any progress or any developments on a sanctions registry that would require organizations to publish a list of individuals that had been disciplined for misconduct. I know during last year's press conference you said that it was among a suite of measures that was being reviewed. Has there been any update on that front?
There has been, and in fact, as of April 1st, there is now a public registry of sanctions that have been made under the Universal Code of Conduct of Maltreatment in Sport through the Office of the Sport Integrity Commissioner. So that registry is now live.
Okay, let's go with Joyce Peer, Jeff Morris from the Toronto Star.
Hi there. I have 2 questions. The first, I wanted to kind of follow up with the first about, the disappointment in not having a public inquiry. And I think one of the concerns with that is that a commission would not have the ability to compel evidence. I know you talked about trauma-informed with victims, but I think there's also the issue of not being able to compel evidence from organizations, especially those who have been found guilty of misconduct. And I'm wondering what your response to that is.
It's definitely something we had to weigh, Joyce. So balancing the desire to have a fulsome and complete understanding of the depth of what's going on with an absolute commitment to athletes' rights, victims' rights. When we weighed those things and honestly really leaning in on other processes that have occurred, different types of inquiries and commissions, and kind of landing on a very TRC-like model, which is expressly a forward-looking process that dealt with individuals who had been victimized, traumatized, and not protected by a system. This has those same hallmarks. And so when we weighed it, this felt like the most responsible course of action given the subject matter at hand.
Thank you. My second question is, you mentioned that this is taking the shape from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that looked into abuse in residential schools. There were 94 recommendations that came of that, and 2015, and a lot of those have not been enacted, and we're seeing that it took several years for those to begin to be enacted. So I'm wondering what power and what authority will this commission have to make sure any recommendations that come out of this commission are, taking form and implemented quickly?
It's a very legitimate question. I don't have a strong answer for you because it really will depend on the nature of the recommendations that come forth. For example, legislative changes or recommendations that might be another jurisdiction, such as the provincial government. So it really will depend on the recommendations that come forth. As well, kind of governments will have to respond. The government will have to respond to this. So I can only speculate because I don't know what recommendations will come.
Merci. Je vais me permettre quelques questions en français moi-même. Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada. J'aimerais vous entendre sur la planification de vos travaux, Madame la Commissaire. Comment entrevoyez-vous ces travaux-là? Est-ce qu'il y a des travaux préliminaires qui ont été faits, des témoins ou des gens que vous voulez consulter? Et dans quelle mesure cette enquête-là va se faire derrière des portes closes?
Va faire quoi? J'ai manqué la fin de votre question.
À quel point cette enquête-là va se faire derrière des portes closes ou encore devant public?
Bon, en effet, vous faites un très bon point qu'il y a beaucoup de travail qui a déjà été fait. Nous avons entendu parler déjà de plusieurs Canadiens sous différents forums. Sans doute, la Commission va regarder à tout ça de très près. Et notre intention présentement, comme j'ai expliqué tantôt, c'est de commencer notre planification. Mais le but ultime de la Commission est premièrement d'écouter et d'entendre les Canadiens, entendre les différents organismes, de consulter avec les provinces et les territoires. Et comme la ministre l'a déjà dit, le mandat explique un peu les activités que nous devons entreprendre par le mandat. Nous devons suivre le mandat. Et à la fin de tout ça, le but ultime, comme je l'ai mentionné dans mes commentaires, c'est de faire des recommandations concrètes pour que le gouvernement puisse agir et puis pour qu'on puisse améliorer le sport sécuritaire au Canada.
Et on comprend que c'est une commission du gouvernement fédéral. Il y a plusieurs fédérations, par exemple, qui vont relever du provincial. Est-ce que vous vous permettez d'aller jusque-là?
C'est à décider, sans doute. Et si vous regardez les termes de référence très près, on mentionne la consultation avec les provinces et les territoires. Sans doute, nous allons faire ça, mais exactement jusqu'à quel point, ce n'est pas encore décidé aujourd'hui.
Bien, merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse. Thank you very much, everyone. This is what concludes this press conference.
Merci beaucoup. Merci Valérie.
Merci.